Well, the process is an interesting one. I believe really strongly in the process. Process is a matter of learned technique, and over time and experience, you learn how to use certain techniques, hopefully to your advantage, right? And scoring has its own technique, I believe, whether it's horror or anything else for that matter. For me, what it is I almost look at it as a three-dimensional puzzle, if you will, or even two-dimensional. Let's just talk puzzle for a second. In any movie, but we'll talk about horror, you have certain characters, so those are pieces of a puzzle. You have obviously certain major scenes, sequences, those are another part of the puzzle. And you have a lot of intertwining of the characters and the sequences in those scenes. So that's how they come together. But now what's interesting and what makes it sort of three-dimensional, in my opinion, is you have to find the meaning of what you're doing. What's the music doing there in the first place? And you get that through the technique of putting the puzzle together, of understanding what the characters are, what the characters are driving or not driving, or what's driving the characters. So the more you understand about the construct of the script, or if the picture is complete, the cut, is a matter of putting those pieces of the puzzle together. So when I'm spotting a film, as an example, I'll look at that film sometimes 4 or 5, doesn't matter how many times, up to 10 times. I want to understand what's driving everything before I even write a note. Because a lot of the time you'll find that what drives it is not necessarily what you see on the screen. It's something underneath. And if you can get to what's underneath that, then you're going to touch your audience in a way that's unique and deserving. And I think that's the most important part of scoring. We score in a two-dimensional medium, okay? We have audio, we have visual. But there's a third dimension in there, and that's film scoring. And that film score itself is that third dimension that gets underneath both of those. And you can manipulate if you want to, right? Obviously. You can support if you want to. You can create flash forwards emotionally, flashbacks emotionally. You have all this power. But unless you understand the exact constructs of what you have to begin with, you're not really going to succeed. So I use the technique of, one, understanding extremely clearly what the music is supposed to do, and then I try to take it that one step further as to not only what it's supposed to do, but being able to succeed at finding that third dimension, as I mentioned, to get underneath what you're visually seeing or hearing.
It's a little bit different. I mean, video games have their own technical requirements that are different from a film. Like, for example, you go look at a film, you've got to say, okay, well, I think that this piece of music should start here and end here. In a video game, you can't write enough music. I mean, I've done massive multiplayer online games where it's like people are playing the game 40 hours a week. I could work on EverQuest the rest of my life, and I wouldn't be able to write enough music for it. So for video games, it's a little bit different. It's about just trying to find, again, the heart of a character, the drama of a situation, or a sense of a place. So I think it's different, but of course, writing music is the same skill. So it is finding the inherent drama and expressing it through music.
Involved in that. The process of making music, it depends on the movie sometimes, on the director. Some director can ask you something mostly specific, like this is scene, I want something like that, so you can start working on building your music according to its need. Sometimes you are more free to do whatever you want. They may check, I like it, I don't like it. And when you become more credible, they leave you more freedom to do whatever you want, because maybe you are the one that is supposed to know more of what's going on. Uh, so normally the process is after seeing some footage. In some cases, it's the reverse. For example, in Suspiria, with our band, we did the main theme before seeing any, actually before the movie was shot at all. So we did this theme, and then maybe Dario Argento was even inspired.
Did you know were you doing the theme for the whole film, or was it just something that was done?
No, we did for that. We had some indication from Dario Argento, so we knew about what the movie was talking about, and that's why we even chosen some particular instruments, there was grease in the middle. So with the grease, we had to use the bouzouki, that is a particular Greek instrument. So we had some idea, but we didn't see anything, so we didn't write the music on the scenes in that case. Normally, you write the music on the scenes. So.
Well, if I have a pre-existing relationship with a director, for James, for instance, I love to hear about the movie. I want him to just give me just his conversational rundown of what the movie is. Then I like to read it, like to know if I know the cast when I'm reading it, I think that's helpful because then I can envision their physicality in my mind before I actually see the picture. And then obviously I'm really going to take my cues from the way a film is shot, the way it's composed, and the style of cinematography, as well as the actual voices of the actors and their physical movements. Because I'll score with the voices as a component of the music. You know, the dialogue functions almost like a vocalist in a rock band or something, you know. So I want to make sure that I write in a way that allows for their voices to be framed appropriately for the film. You know, I don't want to write music that's crowding the same frequencies as their voice or interfering with the cadence of the way they speak in their character roles. So I think about that. So for instance, Super, the movie I did with James prior to Guardians, he wanted to shoot the end of the movie to music. So the whole thing is a monologue by Rainn Wilson at the end of the movie, and it's about 3 minutes. I said, why don't we have Rainn come in and just recite his dialogue? And so he did, and then you know, I just held it, and then a couple weeks later, James was like, hey dude, you have that piece of music? I'm like, oh shoot. So I listened to his dialogue, and the cadence of his dialogue just gave me the cue, and so I wrote the music with his dialogue in that case more as like a spoken word to kind of a quirky alternative kind of indie rock vibe. And that was really cool because the idea for the music really was, the impetus for that idea came from his dialogue. So I'm thinking about those things. I'm thinking about how can this music function in a way that's going to help the performance, help frame the performance so that it's strongest and the best that it can be, you know, instead of just creating a piece of music that's cool on its own, which you hope to do as well. My job is to be a component in the bigger picture.
Well, if we're talking strictly about a horror film, my approach is I don't want to see the movie before it's completely done. I mean, I want to see it, at least an assembly. You know, obviously it's not completely done, but at least the movie. I don't want to see like some scenes and then some other scenes, because for me, I want to get that visceral effect of that you're going to see it the first time. You only get one shot at seeing it. I want that same shot. I want that first time to see it, so I get that feeling, because by the time I score it, I've seen it 7,000 times, and I've lost, you know, there's nothing scaring me about the movie at all. But the first time, there's plenty of stuff going on. So on that kind of a picture, I definitely want to do that. That's the first thing I always try to do. The second thing I try to do is my approach to film scoring, which is different than composing. Because I just finished saying, I said, you know, as a composer, you're about 70% a dramatist. You're writing the drama. You're helping tell the story. You're giving the director his vision in an oral way, and you're saying something that isn't being said in the dialogue. You're manipulating the audience in a way that makes this drama work. Sometimes it's just one note. Sometimes it's no notes. Sometimes the silence. I mean, you got to remember, we write the silence too. So that sometimes I just go, okay, nothing here. Something here, you know. So I try to, in that first shot and looking at the picture, I try to find those places where I can score points. You'll excuse the term, you know, make the drama work, make the story work, or maybe there's an element of the story. Sometimes there's a character or there's something that's not being seen right now, but I want the audience to think about that. So I know that earlier on, I've got to create something that says this. I did in a movie, like in the movie Swamp Thing, there was a thing for the formula that they were developing at the beginning of the film. And I had a little theme for that, okay? But the formula went through the whole film. But every time the idea of the formula or something like that came up, I snuck in my little tune. So the audience was being manipulated into thinking about that.
It's almost like subliminal messages.
It's subliminal. It's subliminal in an oral way, right? Exactly.